Where are you joining us from? I am joining from the US, in New York. From New York State. I actually have two stories. I wanted to tell one recent incident and one older one, but I'll start with the recent one last week. We live just outside a small industrial town. There's a stretch where all the manufacturing and factories are, and around that area there are a lot of properties on big plots of land, acres, trees, lots of green. Once it gets dark after about 8, you're really out in the middle of nowhere. There are animals, and nobody's really on the roads. At the office I work with a few colleagues. One of them is a woman. She works in medical and she's a very nice coworker, normally very well behaved. But she's been someone I've known for about a year now, and once in a while she can go a little hyper or very upset at work. People at the office sometimes don't know what's wrong with her. She can suddenly get very angry or agitated, like she's not herself. Last week, around 11:30 at night, I was in bed getting ready to sleep and I got a call from her. I was surprised. Who calls at 11:30, right? It's pitch dark there at that time. Still, I answered. She was crying loudly on the phone, really hysterical. I asked what happened and she just kept saying, "Please come now, I really need help." She lives a couple of blocks from me, not right next door but not far. Even though it felt odd, I changed quickly and drove over. Her property is not one of those houses right on the road it's set in. You have to drive in, like through trees, so it was really dark. I parked outside her house and called her, but she didn't answer. After a short while I saw a car pull up behind me and she signaled me to come over. I had this little worry in my head of getting a call in the middle of the night, this strange behavior, but I went out. She was sitting on a bench out back where they have a sort of barbecue area. She was crying loudly again. I asked her what's going on, and she said her younger daughter, about 14 or 15 years old, was in the basement and she couldn't get her out. She begged me to help. Some background: I'd heard her mention a few times at the office that her house had something. Nothing concrete, just little comments she'd made. Also, she's Muslim, and I remember one time we talked about the call to prayer, the azan. I had told her, listen to it sometimes, even if you don't believe. Just try it, and she said when she hears it she feels calmer, more peaceful, the negative thoughts go to the side. That's why I knew her a little and why she called me. So she told me the daughter had been in the basement, and when I walked down there I saw her. The daughter was scratching at the wall with her nails, clawing at it, and blood was coming from her hands and maybe her face. She was screaming and dancing around like she was possessed, yelling, let me out, completely out of control. I went in and asked her 10 times, what's wrong? What happened to you? But she kept shouting, don't talk to me, just let me go. I had the basement door open and told her to leave, to go out, and she bolted. She ran outside toward the river. There's a small pond all late near the property. Then things escalated. She ran to a neighbor's house, and when the neighbor, an older woman, probably in her 70s, came out, the girl grabbed the blade and slashed her throat. The girl then ran back toward the river in the dark. Someone else was injured too. An older man was stabbed in the chest. We didn't know the full chain of events in the moment. It was chaos. The police and EMTs arrived quickly after I called 911. When I got there, the cops had already handcuffed the girl and taken her into custody. They also checked the elderly victims and took them to the hospital. From what I saw later, both victims survived till they were stabilized in the hospital. The cuts were deep in at least one case, but she lived. The girl had blood all over her clothes. It was one of the most shocking things I've ever seen in my life. The mother was distraught, bleeding a little herself from the face somehow, crying that this kind of thing was happening at home all the time. She told me she had warned people, she told neighbors and friends, and they'd called her superstitious. They told her to go to church or pray, or that she was making things up. She said she'd even gone to a church a couple of times, but people didn't really listen or help. Another weird thing that night, while we were out in the dark, I looked up at their living room window and saw a figure standing inside. I'll never forget that. It was a person-like silhouette standing at the window of their living room. The house lights were on inside, so it wasn't just a shadow. I stared for maybe 20 or 30 seconds and then I began to recite Ayat al-Kursi, a protective verse from the Quran, quietly. I nodded to her and motioned. She kept looking and then said the figure disappeared. She told me it's always been there, I don't know what it is. That unnerved me. I also learned later that the girl had video called her mother earlier that night by the river and was doing strange things on camera, taking off her clothes and telling her mother to watch, doing things like she wanted to provoke something. In everyday life, the girl seemed normal to me. I'd seen the family at the school or family get together and the kids looked like normal kids. But in these episodes, she's completely different. After everything, the police had to release the girl from detention because she was declared unstable. They couldn't keep her in jail. They took her to a hospital and then sent her back home since she couldn't be held criminally in that state. As of now, she's back at home. The office was told she probably might come back to work next Monday, so we're waiting to see what happens. If I'm honest, I made a mistake that night. I went out there by myself instead of calling the police first. Later, my colleagues told me this is the absolute worst thing to do if someone calls you in the US in an emergency like that. Don't go by yourself, call 911 first. I've learned that the hard way. My mindset was different. Maybe it's that we'll help our friends no matter what mentality from back home. I thought I should help, so I went. But I could have gotten myself into serious danger. When I told her the next day, I told her, if anything like that ever happens again, call the police first. If you want me to come afterward, fine, but don't ask me to go alone at midnight. She said she would, and I've taken precautions since. Hopefully no more mistakes like that. That's the scene from last week. Ever since then she hasn't come back to the office, and I don't know what will happen next. I promised her I'd check in, and when I know more I'll give an update. Hopefully things calm down and the family gets the help they need. That's the story. I'll keep you posted next week if there's any new information. Music.